Hello, my name is Elena Laxo, and this is my American Indian Studies 201 final project. So, for the media I chose was a film, and I used the film This May Be the Last Time, that is directed by Sterlin Harjo. In this film, Sterlin Harjo is the director, and this film informs the audience of the details of his life. The main focus of the film is about his grandfather's disappearance in 1962. And the film starts by explaining how the community started singing songs of encouragement to get through the hard time for all of the individuals impacted in the community. This is a story about the Muskogee and the Seminole hymns, and they explain that the songs have now shaped the modern world today. Some background information. So the director is the main person of this film because it's talking about his life and his tribes and his background, as well as the disappearance of his grandfather. He is a Native American producer and director, and also a documentary filmmaker. He was born in 1980 in Holdenville, Oklahoma. He is currently a member of the Seminole tribe and has Muskogee heritage. In his past, he has directed 3 films, as well as a drama series, all set in his hometown, and he went to college to pursue an art and film major/minor at University of Oklahoma. So some significant information and history to know about this film when talking about it is that the Seminole and Creek tribes were removed from Southeast America and were forced to move to a different location. And during this migration, the tribes brought all of their traditions, their ceremonies, superstitions, their religion, and medicine to their new home. This is again a story of survival and how they pushed past a lot of hardships and negative experiences. And just one little history fact was that the Dawes Act impacted the Seminole and Creek tribes since they were individualized and each received their own portion of land. People were tricked into selling their land for very cheap to white men, and this had a lot of impact that showed them that they were mistreated and that they were going to continue being mistreated for many years to come. Context and function. The technical components of the film, there was many parts where you can see multiple people singing songs. They did this individually, in groups, and as a community altogether. They sung a lot of Christian songs in Muskogee. There was a lot of popular traditions being shown. The audience listened to songs, watched dances. We got to see some ceremonies that are important to their community, as well as hearing a lot of stories from the past. One of the interviews that had someone from the community said that these songs are sung with emptiness and they feel it within themselves, and I think that's just a really big part of how and why they sing, as well as that the human spirit is one of their most important values, and that every person in their community embodies unique qualities and capabilities that not a lot of other people do. And then the film also just shows multiple interviews with individuals from the community, grandfathers, grandparents, elders, children, teenagers, as well as academic experts. The function of the film. So this film is kind of organized where it starts with a short story, and then we learn about the grandfather's disappearance. It then states some history and informs kind of about their community, their customs, traditions, stuff like that. And then we learn about the songs and the backgrounds of how they were created, and we see them being sung. We listen to songs and see dances and traditions and stuff like that. And then the film does end with finding the grandfather and wraps up how this community and their songs impacted everyone as well as the modern world. The organization of the film creates a very emotional impact to the audience. In the beginning, it seems like we're just not going to find this grandfather and that he just disappeared and that was kind of his story. But we did find him at the end, and I think that was a very emotional part. And we get to see the emotional side from the community members as well. They also communicate stories and concepts and ideas through the different perspectives of the people in the Muskogee heritage or the Seminole Creek tribes. They also teach us about the history as well as their purpose of trying to change the attitudes of the audience, like myself, by exposing us to the new cultures and groups. They also convey a lot of messages through their songs, and I think that was another very important aspect of the film. And then for myself, I feel like this film did have an emotional impact for me, and I felt like I was there trying just as hard to find his grandfather after the disappearance. And it was a happy moment when we did get to see him at the end, or not see him, but just figure out how he was found. And then listening to the songs and music created by the Muskogee community made me realize how strong the community is and how much effort it had taken them to be able to get through the trauma and hardships, like the forced migration, as well as just the negative views towards their group of people. And I also found that the timeline of the events in history that they shown in the film did keep me intrigued and interested through the entirety of the film. For the impact and theme connections, I chose 3 different ones that I felt like really resonated with this film. So my first one is cultural identity, which is set values, traditions, and practices that unify a group of people and create a sense of community. It also depicts the qualities and traits that make these groups distinct from one another, as well as we know that this is very complex and intersectional. This film shows cultural identity throughout the whole thing. I mean, there's multiple points in the movie where you do just get to see how people are made up and what makes them to be them. And they show multiple perspectives of how the tribe members view their tribe and their feelings and thoughts and beliefs towards their culture. And I do think that it explains the importances of their spiritual values in their lives, as well as create awareness, influence the audience's thought processes, and inspire empathy for tribes and groups just like them, like experiencing all these hardships. And another really big part of this film is that they are doing everything they can to preserve their cultural identity in the face of threats. The next concept that I chose from our class is resistance, which is fighting against or refusing to be changed by something or someone, and also the ability to prevent something from having an effect. The Muskogee shows resistance by trying as many efforts to preserve their language, ceremonies, and storytelling, even through the threats and pressures, and I think this is definitely shown through the forced migration. When they were forced to move land, they kept all of those traditions, they kept those ceremonies, they kept all of this to keep their community the same and to not be changed by the government. And I also think it explores the trauma and the negative experiences and examines how their lives have impacted the Muskogee community. The last concept I chose was survivance, which is survival and resistance, or survival and endurance. And this is also a cultural and activist response to oppression, and also the act of survivance is the indigenous self-expression and any medium that tells a story about the active presence in the world now, which is exactly what this film is doing. Is they're showing their history and telling the audience about themselves currently and informing about their past. And I think this film is created to teach the audience about their life in the Muskogee tribe, or in the Seminole and Creek tribes as well, showing their practices, their traditions, stories, music, community, and their values, beliefs, and thoughts, but also the hardships and the experiences that they faced. They are constantly fighting to make changes and staying resilient even after the trauma, and that is where those songs come in to keep the community resilient and keep fighting for themselves. For my personal reflection, this film, This May Be the Last Time, helps me understand our course concepts by integrating those core aspects of culture into this film and showing how the community of the Muskogee people have seen this. So in our course, a lot of the concepts reveal to the audience more, I feel like, negative components in American Indian history, like the stereotypes and the cultural appropriation. But we also have course concepts that show how the American Indians have resolved and pushed forward from their past and present hardships, like resistance, survivance, and their cultural identity. And this film shows those positive aspects of their life and how they pushed past all these bad things. And I think that's a really big reason why I chose those three to connect with this film, because this film was positive. It was meant to explain how they pushed forward and not focusing only on the negatives. And then lastly, I just feel like hearing the personal stories of the Muskogee community teaches myself about how to continue to be resilient and realize how impactful history has been on their tribes as well as many other groups in our world. And this is my references. Thank you.